Albania prepares to welcome Italy's asylum seekers. 2 new processing centers administered by Italian authorities will open on Albanian soil this summer. The move has outraged human rights activists, but is third country relocation a policy that's gaining acceptance in Europe, even if legally questionable? I'm Andrea Sankey, and this is the Newsmakers. It's an unusual cooperation agreement, but celebrated by both Italy's Giorgia Meloni and Albania's Edi Rama. Rama sees it as reciprocation for Italy's acceptance of thousands of Albanian refugees back in the 1990s, leaving Tirana to process some 36,000 asylum seekers who've landed in Italy over the last year. The plan to process their cases outside not just Italian borders, but EU borders, isn't too dissimilar to the UK's plan to open centers in Rwanda. But is it truly effective? Does it respect human rights? And moreover, is it legal? Here's a look.
Se questo è quello che accade a un parlamentare a favore di telecamere, alla presenza di 2 presidenti, potete immaginare quello che accadrà.
Tensions running high as Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni visits the site of a future Italian-run asylum centre on Albanian soil. Meloni was confronted by the Italian lawmaker Riccardo Maggi, who, along with human rights groups, say the plan will put an unfair burden on the migrants who are sent there. The Italian and Albanian governments have agreed on a highly controversial plan that aims to reduce the number of people risking highly dangerous Mediterranean sea crossings from North Africa. They've signed an initial 5-year deal under which Albania will house thousands of male asylum seekers in Italian-run reception camps while their claims are processed. Only those from a list of 22 nations that Italy deems safe will be deported to their countries of origin. The list includes countries as far away as Peru and Bangladesh. The scheme is expected to go into effect on August the 1st.
We will have inaugurated a completely new phase in the management of the migration problem. The agreement could be replicated in many countries. It could become a part of the structural solution of the European Union.
The number of migrants crossing the Mediterranean actually dropped by 70% in the first 2 months of 2024, largely because of an EU deal with Tunisia that helps the country fund and strengthen its border management. But Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni is adamant that her Albania plan will proceed, describing it as extremely innovative, designed to prevent illegal sea journeys and streamline the asylum process. 2 centres, one in Jada and the other in Shenzhen, are expected to process up to 36,000 migrants rescued at sea by Italian authorities per year.
The jurisdiction of these centers will be Italian. The staff that will operate inside will be Italian. Public order inside the centers will be ensured by the Italian police, while the Albanian government will ensure cooperation with its police forces for security and external surveillance of the facility.
Some Albanians have expressed compassion for the plight of the migrants, but are also concerned about the economic effect.
We were also refugees once. I was in Greece, and the Greeks were taking care of us with food and everything. Those who will arrive here are just like us. I feel sorry for them. However, Albanians have no money to look after themselves or to look after others.
Albania's Prime Minister Edi Rama says his government's involvement is a gesture of gratitude for Italy's reception of Albanian migrants in the 1990s. But the plan has been highly criticised by Italy's opposition parties and human rights activists.
For us, there is a moral obligation to open the door to anyone in need. But there is no moral obligation to resolve the world's problems. It would be impossible. Under such a situation, it seems that our Prime Minister continuously takes over to resolve the world's problems to gain credits internationally, without consulting with people.
Meloni claims the asylum seekers housed in Albania will be processed within 28 days, much quicker than the overcrowded centres in Italy. But opponents say the deal doesn't save Italy any costs and will run into problems when countries refuse to take back their citizens. And as the preparations continue in Albania, the confrontations and arguments are only set to get louder.
Well, joining me now to talk further about Italy's processing centers in Albania are from Rome, journalist and former spokesperson for the Italian Ministry of Economics, Marco Cecchini. From Milan, head of the International Rescue Committee in Italy, Susanna Zanfrini. And from Palermo, political analyst, Valerio Bordonaro. Now, we did reach out to Albanian representatives for comment, but unfortunately, no one was able to participate in the program today. But Susanna, let me start with you. And I'm actually going to quote Human Rights Watch here, because they say Italy's migration centers, this deal with Albania is a, quote, costly, cruel farce, that it's a model of mismanagement and a blueprint for abuse. Is it?
Yes, thank you. Yes, we agree with Human Rights Watch, and this deal and this agreement is, definitely cruel. It forces people to take more dangerous routes, is not going to stop people seeking for safety and people fleeing from violence, from searching a way to get to a safe haven. It will just force people to take more dangerous routes and be subjected to more risks and exploitation and abuse. It also undermines the right to seek asylum in Europe and in Italy, and it undermines a legal obligation of the European Union. So it's definitely cruel. It is unnecessary. It is very costly. It is estimated that the whole process is going to cost almost
right.
1 billion.
I want to talk more about the cost later, but I mean, right now, Giorgia Meloni is saying these processing centers in Albania are for people that are from actually safe countries. So it's just about, you know, siphoning off kind of the people that really don't have the right to claim asylum in Italy anyway, because they're not from war-torn areas. They're not in danger necessarily in their home countries. So what's so wrong with that?
Well, first of all, the concept of safe country of origin is in itself a little bit problematic, because it doesn't consider the condition and the situation of the single person. Italy, the Italian government has recently enlarged the number of countries in the list, including also new countries that I don't know if it's like by chance, but they actually correspond to the main nationalities arriving on Italian shores irregularly. It's also really unclear how the screening is going to be made on ships or at sea. Because, and I don't know if you know, but basically just refugees and asylum seekers intercepted in international waters by Italian Coast Guard vessels are going to be sent to Albania. So some sort of screening needs to happen. It's not clear when and where. So, and even if, so
but I want to talk more about some of the points you're raising there. But let me first get Valerio into the discussion, because, you know, okay, Giorgia Meloni says this is about deterring migrants and refugees from paying smugglers to cross the Mediterranean, and that it will ultimately help them, not least by speeding up the process, but by making them less vulnerable to traffickers. And that, in turn, helps all of society. Do you agree?
Well, of course not. That's 100% a lie. You know, this government and the center-right coalition is trying to make more and more difficult to get in Italy. That's true. But the result of these policies is to make more and more people illegal, irregular. And the result of this creating irregularities and illegal migration is diminishing the rights of these people. And what the previous speaker was saying, it's surprising, because Italy is considering safe the majority of the countries where migrants are coming from. It's, of course, a political design of this government, of Giorgia Meloni, and previously of Salvini. Italy is trying this way. They want to lead the way in Europe for closing to migration, not understanding that it's not about these 3,000 people that will stay in Albania. The phenomena is much more bigger and interest all the continent of Africa, and Italy is the forefront of this European issue, because it is an issue and it has to be governed, not in this way. They are trying again to create walls, these kind of deals for relocation or detention are of course illegal. And of course, they go against our principle of respect of human rights and rule of law. Why to have an Italian-run building in Albania? Why don't we do it in Italy, under the eyes of everyone?
Yeah, I mean, why tell us, why aren't they doing it in Italy? I mean, there's plenty of, land that can be, they're putting it on a tourist site, basically, near tourist sites in Albania instead. Why not Italy? What was the argument for that?
Well, they are far from us. So for them, it's easier to say that in Albania there's a better condition for building up this facility, but the point is that they don't want it on the coast of Italy. The history that we have seen in the past 2 decades about Lampedusa is that certain Italian people, they don't like these facilities, who are most of the time non-effective, full of people, irrespectful of human lives. So it is more convenient for this government that is loudly saying that they're fighting illegal immigration to put these facilities abroad, so they don't exist.
Okay. Marco, are these plans as ill-conceived as our other 2 panelists seem to think?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not particularly in favor of the Albania operation, but I think that respect the problem of immigration that is an enormous problem everywhere in Europe and elsewhere. I think that in this situation, we have to consider things and situation without prejudice, without ideological prejudice. Now, regarding the Albania operation, there are 3 profiles we have to consider. The first one is the legitimacy of the operation. The second one is the efficacy, the effectiveness of the operation. And the third one is how the construction of the infrastructure are going. As far as the first aspect is concerned, I don't think that the Albania operation is not legitimate.
Right. I know you believe that it's probably legal, but do you think it's the right thing to do? Do you think Italy needs this kind of solution because they just can't let these kinds of refugee and asylum seekers into the country? Is it too much of a burden on the system in Italy?
Apart UK, the German government was not against the operation when it was announced. And speaking to a judge of
what about Italy, though?
What?
I'm just speaking about Italy right now. I mean, is this a problem that needs this kind of solution in Italy because the refugees and asylum seekers are too much of a problem on the ground for the system in Italy itself?
Yes. Why don't try another solution? Why? What can I say? Why we have to consider a bad operation, a bad solution? This one, we haven't seen the effects of the Albania solution, and we haven't seen anything. So we are giving we are giving
Right.
opinions.
So you're not convinced that this is a good solution, though.
We don't have facts in our
Okay.
hands.
Yeah,
Right?
time will tell whether you. But let me just ask you this then, Marco, because you are, an economist. Some say just the construction of these sites will cost Italy about 850 billion euros. The government says about 670 right now. But either way, is this scheme, if it's not saving Italy any money, what's really the point?
The point is not the amount of money. The point is if this amount of money is well employed, is well done, because the immigration problem is too big for entering in money or investment consideration. The point is Italy able to make this infrastructure functioning and alleviating the problem of immigration? Of course, the numbers are not so big, because 3,000 people is not a big number.
3,000 a month.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The numbers are
month,
ridiculous.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So I repeat.
Yeah, let me. Susanna's been waiting to respond. I know you think let's see how it plays out, but Susanna, yeah, why can't we just see if this actually works? Maybe it will prove to be a more humane and effective way to deal with this problem.
It will most certainly not prove, because it's a recipe for disaster. Instead of opening legal venues for people to migrate in a way that is dignified, the solution is to lock them up in a de facto prison in an offshore facility outside of the Italian soil that costs billions of euros. If the same amount of money was invested in making reception conditions more humane and more fostering like the integration and inclusion, if the same amount of money was redirected in that direction, we won't have an emergency, we won't have a problem, because 150,000 people a year for Italy, let alone for Europe, which is the number of people that crossed by sea last year from Libya and Tunisia, is not an emergency.
Okay.
Not whatsoever.
Valerio, and also if you could comment on what this, it's not just about Italy here. What is Albania taking on? And is Albania in a position, is this good for that country as well? There's a lot of Albanians worried that this will affect their thriving tourism industry in a negative way when they're economically struggling as well.
Well, I say in all of this, like a machist fetish for international deals. There wasn't this need for Italy, and I think there's not this need for Albania, that is getting for sure, the infrastructure built there. It will create for sure some economies in the area and in the region, but for the rest, this is just, let's say, a political goal in order to create a better image of the two governments, Meloni and Rama. They are strong and aligned in fighting illegal migration. That's the baseline of this operation there. The point that Albania is not getting much from the agreement, to me it's clear. And same you can say about Italy. The effectiveness of this deal will be minimum. It's just an operation created for the public. So Meloni and Rama, of course, but I focus more on Meloni. Meloni is delivering what she said during the electoral campaign. Meloni is delivering what Salvini wasn't able to deliver.
Okay, and Marco, it's been interesting to hear the talk of, this is what Albania kind of owes Italy, a debt of gratitude in a sense, because of what happened in the 90s when so many thousands of Albanians fled to Italy after the fall of the Soviet Union, and the economy absolutely collapsed. Do you think there is a reciprocity here, that it is healthy for Albania to be paying back Italy in this way?
No, I don't think that there is a reciprocity. I think that simply there are very good relations between and historical relations between Albania and Italy. And so I think that even the Albanian prime minister is interested in making a new effort and in consolidating these good relations. Yes, there was in the early 20s there was a big Albanian emigration, and there was even some big problem because once a boat of migrants was touched by an Italian military controller.
Right.
There were many deaths, and at that time there was a center wing government in power.
Yeah.
So I think that we have to move from ideological approach to this problem.
Okay.
So let's see. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, I just wanted to get Susanna back in because it is interesting as well that, you know, in the 90s, I very vividly remember Italians, late 90s, complaining left and right about the problem with Albanian immigration. And they were almost angrier about it back then than I even see Italians now. I don't live in the country anymore, but I do remember that. So it's ironic to see, like, oh, thank you for doing something we didn't want back in 1990, 97, 98. But let me ask you this, Susanna, very important. Is this setting, from a human rights perspective, an example for other countries now to follow? And do you think that example might be dangerous because this momentum is building toward offshoring these processing centers, similar to the UK's plan in Rwanda?
Yeah, it's definitely sets a precedent. It's not completely unprecedented, but in the EU it sets a precedent, and it is part of a worrying trend of doubling down deterrence measures by the EU and EU member states and even the UK. So it's definitely it cannot be a good example in any way, but it can be an example and can set a worrisome precedent for other governments. I would not say to try to stop arrivals or solve the migration phenomenon, but even to get consensus in my mind, because it kind of sets the spotlight on this as something innovative or new, and it can be easily used for fueling the propaganda.
Right. And one last issue then for both Susanna and Valerio here. You know, in Italy, there's a very specific problem as well with the mafia and organized crime operations trafficking migrants for use in illegal industries, not least for sex work. Is there a problem there in that Italians see these people on the streets and think it's a problem with migration policy rather than them being victims of an illegal business and a problem with corruption within Italy itself?
Yes, definitely. We recently, as IRC, also issued a report that underlines the difficulties in people seeking asylum and trying to file. They'll claim people that are already in Italy in the lengthy process that keeps people in the streets for even months, so that they become easily like the victim, or they become exposed to trafficking networks, all sorts of violence. And then, I guess for the Italian public, it doesn't really make a difference how they arrived, or they just see it as an emergency, as a problem, something that needs to be sorted out, instead of clearly stating, as you really said, that they are a victim of this system, all the system.
Valerio, go ahead.
Well, if you try to make a triangle with Italy, Albania, and organized crime, you will find different evidences of what's going on. Last week, an Italian inquiry, journalistic inquiry about this deal, the Italy-Albania deal, showed that every part of the Italian elite is involved in very serious and deep relations with Albania. You can go from the former communist Massimo D'Alema, who was also former prime minister, who is running now one of the most important lobby firm in Albania about crypto finance, and you can arrive till the undersecretary of the Meloni government, so the former fascist. Every one of them has very deep and intricate relations with Albania, and we know that the Albanian government has very deep relations with organized crime. So
a lot more to this,
creating illegal person, create irregular migration,
right.
is of course part of this deal.
I feel we could do an entire program on that aspect alone, but unfortunately we're completely out of time. So I'd like to thank all three of my panelists so much for being with us. Our viewers, of course, for being with us as well. Remember, you can follow us on X, and do be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm Andrea Sankey. We'll see you next time.